Joining us now, Congressman Lee Zeldin from House Financial Services and Fox News contributor Liz Peek. Okay, let's stay on this. I want to turn to you first, Congressman, and then Liz. Nancy Pelosi has been around since the Reagan era, Biden since the Nixon era. So Nancy Pelosi now trucks out a new battle plan on inflation. That Democrats are going to decide what is excessive and exploitative in terms of price increases at the pump. Price controls cause fuel shortages. Why do we continue having competent policies coming out of Democrats who've been in office for decades?
They're just trying to put the blame out on other people. And for Nancy Pelosi, in trying to preserve a House Democratic majority, her goal is to try to get American people to not only be blaming these oil companies, but also blaming Republicans. They're trying to dare you, trying to dare me into calling balls and strikes here, and then they'll claim, they'll spin it and say, well, look at them, they're out defending the oil companies. The reality is, the average American out there is smart enough to realize that if you cut off Russian oil imports, you shouldn't be running off to Iran and Venezuela. You should be ramping up domestic energy production. The average American is smart enough to realize, as you're watching that piece with Hillary Vaughn and you're showing a loaf of bread, that when you have to pay more for diesel, that means when you go out and try to buy chicken, it's going to cost more. Your loaf of bread is going to cost more. Yeah. Americans are smarter than Pelosi's giving them credit for.
The thing is, Congressman, what the Congress is saying, Liz, gas is at record highs, but the White House just canceled oil and gas leasing in the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska.
Liz, they are basically unutterably opposed to fossil fuels. We have climate zealots in the White House making these policies, which now are very visibly hurting average Americans, all Americans. But Nancy Pelosi's thing is really astounding. As you point out, we had actual shortages when they tried to put price controls on gasoline in earlier times when we had this kind of escalation in gas prices. It doesn't work. It never works. And by the way, if it's all Putin's fault, how is basically slamming the brakes on small operators, gas stations? Nancy Pelosi may not know this. They aren't owned by big oil companies. They're owned by independent operators. Right. And so somehow they're in cahoots with Putin. The thing is so ridiculous, it's laughable, but it is not laughable if they actually do this.
Yeah, and it feels cynical, too. They're running out of scapegoats, to Liz's point. They're running out of scapegoats. President Biden is now, he's stepping on a rake with another whopper. Watch the president with that and watch him shouting about food shortages. We have a baby formula shortage that's really severe right now under his administration. Watch this.
We inherited an economy on the brink of a Great Depression. Millions of people losing their jobs, losing their homes, but even more importantly, losing hope. Remember those long lines you'd see on the television? People lining up in all kinds of vehicles just to get a box of food in their trunk. How quickly we forget. People were hurting. And what did the MAGA crowd want to do? Forget it. Forget it. God, this is the United States of America.
Okay, this is breathtakingly idiotic. Democrat-led shutdowns destroyed 22 million jobs. The Democrats did that. He inherited a recovery. Show the data. Is he going to change course, Congressman? Any new staff, new policies, or just blaming and stonewalling? I mean, they are running out of scapegoats. We've got $3,600 more that households have to spend per year because of inflation.
I think they're just going to keep on blaming. I mean, that's the strategy. It's clear. Now, when you see the president give a speech, what the average American wants is to take ownership over what the issue is. They want to see the president lead in saying that, yes, we have an issue with access to baby formula. Here's my plan to do something about it. Instead, rather than identifying what the problem is and then offering up your solution, the American public is getting frustrated and tired of just constantly trying to scapegoat. We are not living through a never-ending Democratic National Convention. You and I have spoken about this in the past, and it seems like while you and I realize that these are real challenges, real issues that need to be dealt with, impacting lives, and this is about life and death, even for little kids, unfortunately, the White House just can't help themselves, and they're just trying to find out new people to blame.
Yeah, well, now, Liz, inflation is becoming systemic, right? Because it's not just food and energy, it's beyond that. It's going into services. I want you to listen to this. You know, by the way, Biden is a product of 50 years of D.C. Democrat thinking, putting spending on steroids. Trillions in government spending we only see in war times. He's plowing hot money into a system that was in lockup, while at the same time restricting production of goods and services, including U.S. energy. So, Liz, can they keep shooting the bazooka elephant gun of money at an economy? I think it had a $500 billion output gap.
Well, yeah, exactly. The output gap, which is about 1/4 as big as the amount of money that they threw at it. Liz, they don't have any answers, so they're going to continue to flail around like this. Meanwhile, everything Biden does contributes to inflation. His push for unionization, his demand that all the projects in the infrastructure bill be built with union labor, all these kinds of things. Obviously, the energy policy is completely bonkers in terms of where we are right now. His offending Saudi Arabia and UAE, the only countries on the planet that have excess production capacity and could actually ramp up output right now and help Americans and the world with lower oil prices. He is so infuriated that they won't do it. Everything he's done is wrong. And I really search for something to kind of balance that against. I can't find anything. I really think he's just so out of it and sort of off in left field. You can't see it.
Liz, and the point is you need to clear out inflation, stop hyper-regulating and shutting down U.S. oil and gas and manufacturers. That's how you clear out inflation, right, Liz? Final word.
Well, and also, you've got to get people back on the job, Liz, and handing out $1,400 checks in the American Rescue Plan, continuing to give out things like moratoriums on rents and student loans and so forth. All that means that people don't need to go back to work. And we need people back on the job. That wages is a real problem right now.
Okay, Congressman Zeldin and Liz Peek, thanks for joining us.